The power trio is a rock band typically defined as having a guitar, bass, and drums, with one of the instrumentalists also doubling as the lead vocalist. The rise of the power trio was made possible in the 1960s because of developments in amplification technology. This meant that the bass could be louder and take up the space of having a second rhythm guitar. Not all of the bands were fronted by guitarists. Bands like Rush and The Police had a bass player lead vocalist. Each decade, beginning in the 1960s, brought us a new batch of big power trios. Here are some of the bands from the 60s. The Jimi Hendrix Experience. Cream. One of the fascinating things about Cream is that they had two different lead singers. You had Jack Bruce, who played bass, and you had Eric Clapton, who played guitar, both of which sang lead and many times traded off during the same song. It's the morning, just we two. I'm gonna stay with you, darling, now. Blue Cheer, a psychedelic blues band from San Francisco, was a huge influence on many different genres of rock to come. Punk rock, metal, stoner rock, doom metal, and grunge. The 70s brought us even more power trios, like Grand Funk Railroad, The Jam, progressive rock Canadian icons Rush, one of the greatest power trios of all time. The great ZZ Top playing their 1975 hit, Tush. Another one of Canada's huge power trios, Triumph. Power trios are not always guitar, bass, and drums. In fact, some of them are keyboards, bass, and drums, like with the band Emerson, Lake and Palmer. In 1978, with the release of this song, this three-piece band from England was about to become one of the biggest bands of all time. Those days are over. You don't have to sell your body to the night. By the time they had called it quits in 1984, after their fifth record, Synchronicity, they had become one of the biggest bands in the world. The late 70s and 80s gave rise to even more new and different power trios, like Motorhead, Robin Trower, and then in 1989 we had a three-piece band from Aberdeen, Washington that was to change the face of music in the 90s, Nirvana. The release of Nirvana's second record, Nevermind, in September of 1991 marked a complete change stylistically in what had been going on in the 1980s hair metal movement. This was to become one of the most seminal records of all time. Another band that came on the scene in the mid-80s from the Southern California punk scene was Green Day. Green Day's 1994 release, Dookie, was to become one of the biggest pop-punk records of the 90s. Another early 90s trio that was fronted by bass player Les Claypool was Primus, who can be seen here playing on SNL in 1992. King's X was another American trio that was formed in the 80s and continued on until the present. Their music combines progressive metal, soul, and funk with three-part harmonies influenced by gospel and blues. Another great power trio from the mid-90s, Failure. Their song Stuck on You was a breakout hit from the 1996 release Fantastic Planet. In 90s brought even more trios like Firehose, Sublime, Australia's Silverchair, and Southern California's pop punk legends Blink-182. The 2000s have brought even more new and interesting takes on the power trio, like the British band Muse. The Joy Formidable. The Secret Machines. Instrumental power trio Russian Circles. Okay, now it's your turn to write in the comments all the power trios that I forgot to mention. Remember, please subscribe here to my Everything Music YouTube channel. If you're interested in the Beato book, go to my website at www.rickbeato.com and follow me on Instagram at rickbeato1. Thanks for watching.